My name is Gloria May Johnson. I'm 62 years old now, and I've spent the last 4 decades learning one brutal truth. The people we love the most can hurt us the deepest. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where my story really begins. Not with betrayal, but with hope. I was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. My childhood wasn't much to speak of. My parents were good people, church people, but we didn't have money. We had love instead. That's what Mama always said. Gloria, we may not have much, but we got love enough to feed 100 people. I believed her then. I still do now. When I turned 18, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to hold people's hands when they were scared. I wanted to be the one who stayed when things got hard. So I worked my way through nursing school, waitressing, cleaning houses, whatever paid the bills. For 3 years, I barely slept. I barely ate, but I got that degree. For 39 years, I worked the night shift at Baptist Hospital, 12-hour stretches where I'd move from room to room, checking vitals, changing bandages, sitting with dying people who had no family at their bedsides. I became their daughter, their sister, their comfort. Every single one of them mattered to me. That was the kind of woman I was. I gave everything to everyone, no matter what. But there was one person I gave even more to. One person who made all those sacrifices feel worth it. My daughter, Janelle. She was a miracle. Doctors told me at 38 years old that my window was closing. My womb was tired, they said. My eggs were aging. The odds were against me. I'd been married to Elijah for 5 years by then, but he was a man chasing dreams that didn't belong to him, playing blues guitar in clubs at night, working odd jobs during the day, always promising tomorrow would be different. It never was. When I found out I was pregnant, I cried for 3 hours straight. Not sad tears, grateful tears. I remember kneeling beside my bed at 3 a.m, my hands on my belly, whispering to God, "Please, let me keep this baby. I'll give her everything, everything." Elijah left when I was 5 months along. He said a baby would tie him down. He said he needed to find himself. He found himself all right, disappeared into the nightclubs, and never came back. I haven't heard from him since. I raised Janelle alone. My little house on Maple Street became our whole world. It was a cozy brick home with a porch that needed painting and a backyard where fireflies danced in the summer. I bought it with my savings and a loan that took me 15 years to pay off. Every nail, every floorboard, every inch of that house represented sacrifice and faith. Janelle was born on a Tuesday morning in March. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Perfect. I held her against my chest in that hospital bed, and I made a promise to that tiny human. I'm going to love you so hard, you'll never doubt your worth. Her childhood was simple but full. Sunday mornings at Mount Olive Baptist Church, where she'd sing in the children's choir. Saturday afternoons in the kitchen while I cooked greens and cornbread, and she'd stand on a stepladder beside me, flower in her hair, asking endless questions. Bedtime stories where I'd make up adventures just to keep her entertained. Every vacation I didn't take meant money for her school clothes. Every overtime shift meant a better Christmas. Janelle was a sweet girl, smart, polite. She'd come home from school and hug me like I'd been gone for years, even though she'd seen me that morning. She'd say things like, "Mama, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house with a porch swing, and you never have to work again." I'd laugh and kiss her forehead, and in those moments, all the exhaustion, all the struggle, it felt worth it. High school came. She was still my girl, still kind, still mine. She got good grades. She was careful with boys. She talked to me about everything. Her friends, her dreams, her fears. We were close. The kind of close that makes you believe nothing in the world could break that bond. Then she turned 18. It was subtle at first, a shifting of the eyes when I offered advice, a slight edge to her voice when I asked about her day. She started spending more time at her best friend's house. She mentioned boys I hadn't heard about before. This was normal, I told myself. This was what growing up looked like. Then came college. University of Alabama. I was so proud. I sat in the audience at her graduation ceremony, tears streaming down my face, knowing I'd sacrificed for this moment, knowing that she was going to have opportunities I never had. The first year was fine. She'd come home on weekends. We'd spend Sunday at church together, but something shifted in her sophomore year. That's when she met Darren. I'll never forget the day she brought him home. It was a Saturday afternoon in October. The leaves were starting to turn gold, and I'd baked a peach cobbler because I always did when she was coming home. The doorbell rang, and when I opened it, there he was, tall, smooth-talking, with waves in his hair and a smile that seemed to light up the whole porch. "Miss Johnson, it's an absolute honor to meet you," he said, shaking my hand. "Janelle talks about you all the time. You're an inspiration." I smiled. He had manners. That was good. But something in his eyes made me pause. There was a confidence there that didn't feel earned. It felt like performance. But I was wrong to judge, I thought. I was being an overprotective mother. So I invited him in, made him a plate, asked him about his family. That's when she arrived. Denise. She came through my front door like she owned it, trailing expensive perfume, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, her heels clicking on my hardwood floors. She looked around my living room the way you'd look at a thrift store, not with judgment, exactly, but with the kind of distance that comes from never having wanted for anything. "So, this is the house," she said, running her finger along my bookshelf. "Janelle's mentioned it." "Welcome," I said warmly, offering her a seat. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Water is fine. Tap water is fine," she said, as if I offered her something beneath her station. Darren's mother spent that afternoon reorganizing my kitchen, literally moving things around while I made dinner and talking about her son like he was royalty. "My Darren is going to be very successful," she'd say. "He has ambitions. He's not the type to settle." She'd say this while looking at Janelle, as if to measure whether Janelle was good enough for his trajectory. Before they left, Denise pulled me aside in my kitchen. "Gloria," she said, and the way she said my name felt like a warning. Darren deserves a woman who knows her place, a woman who knows how to treat a king. I hope Janelle understands that. I stood there, holding my dish towel, feeling something tighten in my chest. "Janelle is a good girl," I said quietly. "She knows her worth." Denise smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That remains to be seen. After they left, I sat on my porch for a long time. Janelle hugged me goodbye, but something felt different. There was a nervousness to her, a need to please. She kept saying things like, "Darren's family has so much, Mama. They're really established," as if she was apologizing for her own beginnings. Over the next 2 years, I watched my daughter change. Not all at once, but in pieces. Her visits home became less frequent, her phone calls shorter. When she did come by, she'd critique things. My furniture was outdated. My neighborhood was not what she wanted to build toward. My values were old-fashioned. One afternoon, she said something I'll never forget. We were sitting in the kitchen, and I was telling her about a difficult shift at work, a patient I had lost, a woman about my age. I was processing the grief, needing my daughter to listen. Janelle looked at me and said, "Mama, I'm not going to end up like that. I'm not going to spend my whole life exhausted, making nothing, struggling in some neighborhood where nothing ever changes. Darren says I deserve better. He says his mother came from money and she knows how to build wealth. I want that. I want out. The words hit me like a fist. Out, I repeated. Baby, out from where? This is your home. This is where you come from. Exactly, she said, and there was a coldness in her voice I'd never heard before. Where I come from. That's when I should have seen what was happening. That's when I should have recognized the manipulation. But I was her mother, and mothers always believe their children can be saved. So I swallowed the hurt. I smiled. I pretended it didn't sting. And then in a moment that would change everything, I made a decision that seemed loving at the time. Janelle was graduating college. I sat her down and said, "Baby, you're an adult now. You'll need access to accounts, to resources. I want to make sure if anything ever happens to me, you're taken care of. So I'm going to add you to my bank account as a joint user." She looked surprised, touched, maybe. "Really, Mama?" "Really," I said. "I trust you. You're my daughter." I printed the paperwork. She signed. It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes that would cost me everything. I had $148,200 in that account. A lifetime of savings. Every overtime shift, every skipped vacation, every coupon clipped, every penny carefully placed into a future I thought I was building, not just for me, but for her, for us. It took her less than 2 months to take every single penny. And that Tuesday morning, when I checked my bank balance and saw $12.14 staring back at me, that's when love died and betrayal was born. Also, download your ebook titled Suspense and Family Drama Short Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. These are stories about families like yours, about people facing impossible choices, about what happens when trust is broken. Now, before I continue, I want you to tell me in the comments, what would you have done in that moment? If you're still with me and you want to know what happened next, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support tells me that these stories matter, that truth matters, that family, even when it breaks, is worth fighting for. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was my laundry day. Always has been. I'd wake up, say my prayers, make oatmeal with brown sugar and cinnamon, and by 7 a.m., I'd be checking my banking app like I always do. Just routine. Just making sure the numbers were where they were supposed to be. Except they weren't. I sat on the edge of my bed in my nightgown, my reading glasses sliding down my nose, staring at that phone screen like it was lying to me. My balance, $12.14. $12.14? That wasn't possible. I just checked it on Sunday. There had been over $148,000 in there. I refreshed the screen. Once. Twice. 3 times. Nothing changed. My heart didn't race at first. It just stopped. Like my body didn't know how to process what my eyes were telling it. I got up slowly. My legs felt strange, distant, like they belonged to someone else. I walked to my kitchen and sat at the table where Janelle and I had shared countless breakfasts, where I'd taught her to count money when she was 6 years old, where I'd told her that financial responsibility was the backbone of independence. I opened the app again and scrolled through the transaction history. That's when it hit me. Thousands of dollars in plane tickets, multiple bookings, luxury hotel reservations in places I couldn't even pronounce, designer luggage from stores I didn't know existed, then transfers, large ones, to another account I didn't recognize. Not one transaction, not 2, dozens, maybe more. Each one a small knife, each one cutting deeper than the last. My hands started shaking. I dropped the phone onto the table. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. "Hey, this is Janelle. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." I called again. Voicemail. Again. I called Darren. Nothing. I called her best friend Monica, who'd known her since middle school. Monica, sweetie? Where is Janelle? My voice didn't sound like my own. There was a pause. I could hear her hesitating. Miss Gloria? I think she flew out yesterday. She mentioned a trip. I thought you knew. The room tilted. Where? I whispered. I'm not sure. She was being kind of secretive about it. But Darren's been talking about Greece. He's been talking about it for weeks. Greece. With my money. I don't remember putting my shoes on, but I was wearing them. I don't remember deciding to go to the airport, but I was in my car, driving with both hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles were white. My church shoes, old ones, brown leather, scuffed at the heels from years of standing at bedsides. They were still on my feet from yesterday. I hadn't changed them. The airport was loud and chaotic. People rushing everywhere, families reuniting, lovers saying goodbye. I went to the ticketing desk, my voice shaken so bad I could barely form the words. My daughter, I said. Janelle Johnson. Did she check in for an international flight yesterday? The agent typed. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. I held my breath. She nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. She was on a flight to Athens. Departed 7:45 p.m. last night. My legs gave out. Not completely. I didn't fall. But I had to sit down on one of those hard airport chairs, and I felt like I was disappearing, like I was dissolving into nothing right there in front of all those people. A woman next to me asked me if I was okay. I couldn't answer her. What would I say? That my daughter, the baby I carried for 9 months, the girl I raised alone, the child I sacrificed everything for, had emptied my bank account and left the country without a word? I sat there for what felt like hours. It was probably only 30 minutes. Eventually, I got up and walked back to my car. I drove home in silence. No radio, no thoughts. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing. When I got to my house, I sat in my driveway for another hour. The sun was climbing higher in the sky. Neighbors were out getting their mail, walking their dogs. Mrs. Wilson from across the street saw me sitting there and waved. I didn't wave back. Inside, the house felt different. Colder. I went to my bedroom and laid down on top of my covers, still wearing those brown church shoes. That's where the grief found me.
It came in waves. First, the scream. It started low in my throat and just kept building, getting louder and louder until my neighbors probably heard it. I got off the bed and went to the kitchen, I don't even know why, and I was screaming at the refrigerator, at the walls, at God. I slammed my palm against the counter, once, twice, over and over until it started to hurt, and even then I didn't stop because at least the pain made sense. At least it was real. I cried. Hard, ugly crying where your whole body shakes and you can't breathe properly. I cried for my daughter. I cried for my money. I cried for my trust. I cried for every single moment I thought we were close, every time I believed she loved me the way I loved her. Mrs. Wilson heard me through the walls. She knocked on my door around noon, and when I opened it, she took one look at my face and just wrapped me up in her arms without asking any questions. She was 78 years old, and she held me like I was her child. "Baby, what happened?" she whispered. I told her. The words came out broken, fragmented, not making sense. She listened to all of it, and then she just held me tighter. "Betrayal don't always come from your enemies," she said quietly. "Sometimes it's the ones you fed." She made me tea. We sat at my kitchen table and I showed her the bank statements. She looked at the numbers and shook her head slowly. "This wasn't no mistake," she said. "This was planned." That's when something shifted inside me. The crying stopped, the rage took over. I called the bank the next morning, stood in the lobby with a folder full of statements and screenshots, my jaw clenched so tight I could barely speak. "My daughter stole from me," I told the branch manager, a young woman who couldn't have been more than 30. "She had access to my account as a joint user and she drained it. I want to know if there's anything I can do." The manager looked sympathetic but helpless. She typed on her computer and then looked at me with that expression people give you when they're about to deliver bad news. "I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson, but because her name is on the account as a joint user, legally she had the right to withdraw those funds. There's nothing criminal about it from a banking perspective." Legal. The word sat heavy in my chest. So she can just take everything and there's no consequence? Not from us, no. I left that bank feeling something I'd never felt before. Not just anger, not just hurt, something deeper, something that felt like purpose. That night, I sat at my computer. I didn't have fancy technology, just an old Dell that took forever to load, but I opened up my email and I started going through every message between Janelle, Darren, and Denise that I'd kept. Years of correspondence. Birthday wishes, family group chats, small comments that hadn't meant much at the time but now seemed loaded with meaning. I found a message from Denise to Janelle from 6 months ago. "Once your mother's house situation is handled, you two will be set for real." My house. They were talking about my house. I saved that email. I found a text exchange between Janelle and Darren where she said, "Mama has no idea what's coming. She thinks we love her too much to hurt her." I screenshotted it. I found a voicemail from Denise that I'd almost deleted weeks ago. I listened to it again with new ears. "In Gloria, you raised your daughter too soft. Her money is our money now. You old school women always act like your kids owe you something. Get over it." In the background, I could hear Darren laughing, and then his voice, "Once we get the reverse mortgage on that house, we set for real." Reverse mortgage. My house. I played that voicemail 6 times. Each time it felt like a different betrayal. Each time, my resolve got stronger.
On day 4, my phone buzzed. A text from Janelle. "Mama, don't freak out. We needed a start. I know you're upset, but we'll pay you back once we get settled. Just trust me. I'll explain everything when I get back. Love you." I read those words and felt something crystallize inside me. She was asking me to trust her. After taking everything, after destroying my future, after planning to take my house, I didn't respond. An hour later, another message came through. This one from a number I didn't recognize. When I opened it, my blood turned cold. It was a voice note from Denise. I pressed play. "Gloria, you raised your daughter too soft. All that coddling, all that I sacrificed for you nonsense, you made her weak. Well, guess what? Her money is our money now. Your pension is just a bonus. You old school women always act like your kids owe you something just because you changed their diapers and fed them. Get over it. Janelle's with us now. She's going to have real opportunities, real money, real status, not this small town broke nurse life you've been living. Maybe you should figure out what you're going to do about that house, because that's the next thing that's going to change hands. Darren's signing the paperwork when we get back." I had to sit down. In the background of that voicemail, I could hear Darren's voice clearly. "Once the reverse mortgage goes through, we set for real. My mother knows the guy at the bank. No problem at all." My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped the phone. I played it again. And again. Every word was a confession. Every laugh was an admission of guilt. This wasn't improvised theft. This wasn't a moment of weakness or poor judgment. This was a scheme, a calculated, methodical plan to strip me of everything I'd built. They weren't coming back to settle down and apologize. They were coming back to take my house. For the first time in my life, I understood what people meant when they said they saw red. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something colder, something more dangerous. I was focused. I created a new folder on my computer. I labeled it Evidence. I saved every text, every email, every voicemail. I downloaded my bank statements. I printed out the airline tickets showing where my money had gone. I noted timestamps. I organized everything chronologically. Then, I did something I should have done earlier. I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she worked for a firm that specialized in elder exploitation cases. I sat across from her in her office with my folder of evidence, and I told her everything. She listened. She took notes. She asked clarifying questions. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair and looked at me with an expression that was part sympathy, part fury. She said, "This is textbook elder financial abuse, and that voicemail about the reverse mortgage, that's attempted fraud against a senior citizen. That's a felony." I asked, "What can we do?" She said, "We can file charges, we can freeze assets, we can petition the court to stop any transactions on your house, we can subpoena bank records and communications." She paused. "But I need to be honest with you. This is going to be a process. It's not going to be quick." I said, "I don't care how long it takes. I want justice." She nodded. "Then let's start building a case." Over the next 3 weeks, I did things I never thought I'd do. I hired a forensic accountant. I filed a police report. I sat with lawyers and detectives and told my story over and over again. I saved that voicemail from Denise on my computer, on my phone, and I even mailed a copy to myself, a backup plan in case anything happened to my devices. I froze my house title. I put a fraud alert on all my accounts. I stopped answering Janelle's texts and calls. I became someone different. Not angry Gloria, not grieving Gloria, strategic Gloria.
It was during week 2 that my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Miss Johnson?" A man's voice. Young. Nervous. "Yes?" "My name is Andre. Andre Mitchell. I'm Darren's brother." I went very still. "I need to tell you something," he continued. "And I need you to listen carefully because what my family did to you, it's not the first time." Over the next 20 minutes, Andre told me a story that made my skin crawl. 2 years ago, his aunt, his mother's sister, had taken out a reverse mortgage on her home, or at least she thought she had. What she actually did was sign documents that were supposed to be something else. When she figured out what had happened, the deed to her house had been transferred into Denise's name. "My aunt tried to fight it," Andre said. "But by then, Denise had already taken out loans against the property. My aunt lost her house." "Where is she now?" I asked. "She's with my other aunt. She's not doing well. Mentally, I mean. She had a stroke last year. The stress, the betrayal, it broke her." I felt the room spin. "Darren did this?" I whispered. "Darren and my mother. She plans it. He executes it. They've been doing it to people for years. My aunt wasn't the first, and you won't be the last." "Why are you telling me this?" There was a long pause. "Because I got tired of being complicit by being silent," Andre said. "Because my aunt deserved better, and because you deserve to know who you're really dealing with." Then he said something that changed everything. "There's more. They didn't just steal your cash. I saw documents in my mother's office, reverse mortgage paperwork with your signature, except I know you didn't sign it. They forged it." My hands went numb. "Where are these documents?" I asked. "I'm going to email them to you right now. And Miss Johnson, I'm willing to testify about what I know. I'm willing to help you. My family is wrong, and I can't be part of it anymore." Within minutes, emails arrived. Documents I'd never seen. Paperwork with my signature. Not my actual signature, but a convincing forgery. Loan applications in my name for amounts I'd never borrowed. A reverse mortgage in my name with falsified documentation. They had been planning this the whole time. I forwarded everything to my lawyer with a note. They forged my signature. They tried to steal my house. Patricia called me within the hour. Gloria, this changes everything. This moves from fraud into forgery and attempted grand theft. We have them. I sat in my living room, the house they'd tried to steal, and I made a decision. They were coming back from Greece in 5 days. And when they did, they were going to find out that Gloria May Johnson, old, weak, tired Gloria, whom they'd written off as easy prey, had been building a case against them the entire time. They thought they'd won. They had no idea what was coming.
The 5 days leading up to their return felt like 5 years. I didn't sleep much. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, going over everything with Patricia. We filed the fraud charges. We notified the police. We subpoenaed the bank records showing the forged reverse mortgage application. We gathered Andre's statement and the documents he'd provided. We built a fortress of evidence so solid that there would be no way out. But I had to be smart about it. I had to let them think they'd gotten away with it. I didn't answer Janelle's calls or texts. When she texted asking about me, I left her hanging. When Darren messaged saying they were excited to see me, I responded with a simple, okay. I wanted them to feel safe. I wanted them to think I was broken, defeated, the kind of mother who'd swallow the betrayal and pretend it never happened. People like Darren and Denise, they only feel invincible when their victim is silent. On day 5, I got a message. We're landing tomorrow afternoon. See you soon, Mama. I didn't respond. That night, I called Patricia one final time. Are we ready? We're ready, she said. When they arrive, just let them settle. Act natural. I've coordinated with the police. When you give the signal, they'll be there within minutes. What's my signal? I asked. Just text me a photo of something, anything. They'll know you've confirmed they're there. I hung up the phone and sat in my living room. My house, the place I'd built brick by brick, payment by payment, dream by dream. The place where Janelle had learned to read, where she'd had her high school graduation party, where I'd imagined her bringing her own children one day. They were coming to take it. Not anymore. The next day, I showered, I put on a clean dress, not fancy but neat. I made a pot of tea, I sat in my favorite chair with a book that I wasn't reading, waiting. At 2:47 p.m., a rental car pulled into my driveway. My heart didn't race. I was beyond that now. I felt clear, focused, like a soldier before battle. The front door opened without a knock. That's how comfortable they were in their dominance. That's how certain they were I wouldn't fight back. Darren came in first, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Designer sunglasses pushed up on his head, a tan that screamed wealth and leisure. Behind him was Denise, in a silk scarf and oversized sunglasses, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. And then Janelle. My daughter looked different. Thinner, tired. There was something haunted in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Mama! Janelle rushed over to hug me. I let her, but I didn't hug back. She felt the coldness and pulled away, confused. Denise didn't even pretend to be warm. She just looked around my living room the way she always did, like it was beneath her. So, Darren said, dropping onto my couch uninvited, when are we putting this place on the market? The agent I found in Atlanta says we could list it for... When are we putting my house on the market? I interrupted quietly. He smiled like I was a child asking a silly question. Your house? Baby, your house is our house now. That's the whole plan. I reached for my phone on the side table. I opened my camera. I took a photo of nothing, just the wall. I sent it to Patricia. Gloria, let's be real, Denise said, her voice dripping with condescension. You're what?
62? How much longer do you think you're really going to be working? Your pension is what, maybe $2,000 a month? You can't maintain this place. You can't maintain yourself. We're actually doing you a favor. A favor? I repeated. Yes, she said coldly. We're taking the burden off your hands. You should be grateful. I stood up slowly and walked to my front window. Do you see those cars outside? Darren and Denise exchanged confused glances. 2 police cruisers pulled quietly into my driveway. No sirens, no drama, just authority. What the? Darren jumped up. What's happening? Janelle's voice cracked. I turned to face them and I saw something I'll never forget. Fear. Real, genuine, soul-deep fear. That's what's happening, I said quietly. That's what happens when you steal from someone, when you forge documents in their name, when you try to take their house. A knock at the door. Darren moved towards it, but the officers didn't wait for permission. They were inside, showing badges, reading rights. Darren Mitchell, Denise Mitchell, you're under arrest for elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit grand theft. Denise's face went pale. She looked like she was about to say something, then thought better of it. Darren started talking. This is a misunderstanding. She's my wife's mother. We were just helping her. You have the right to silence, the officer said. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They cuffed him. When they moved to cuff Denise, she started crying. Not remorseful tears, but angry ones. She looked at me with pure hatred. You old bitch. You destroyed your own daughter. No, I said calmly. I saved her. When they took Darren and Denise out of my house, Janelle collapsed. Not physically, not at first, but something inside her just crumbled. She sank onto the floor like her bones had turned to water, and she started crying. Not the performative tears of someone caught, but the deep, body-racking sobs of someone whose entire world had just fallen apart. I stood there and watched. I didn't comfort her. Not yet. "Mama," she gasped between sobs. "Mama, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they were going to do all of it." "You didn't know?" I repeated. "Janelle, you emptied my bank account." "Because Darren asked me to. Because I was scared of him. Because he said if I didn't help him, he'd leave me. And I didn't know who I was without him, and—" "Stop," I said. She stopped crying for a moment and looked up at me. "Do you understand what you did?" I asked. "You didn't just take money. You took my future. You took decades of sacrifice. You took the one thing I had built that was mine." "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I'm so sorry. And I'll pay it back, I promise. Money doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't fix this." Over the next 2 weeks, there were court dates and depositions. Janelle sat across from me in a lawyer's office, and we went through it all. The theft, the planning, the conversations she'd had with Denise about how to manage me, how to keep me from suspecting anything. She hadn't known about the forged reverse mortgage. That was purely Darren and Denise's work. But she'd known about taking my money. She'd known it was wrong. She'd done it anyway. I spoke to my lawyer about her options. Patricia laid it out plainly. We can press charges against her too. She'd likely face jail time. Or we can make it conditional. She gets a second chance, but only if she takes full responsibility. I sat with that for a long time. One morning, Janelle came to my house. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her eyes were red and swollen. She'd lost weight. She looked like a ghost of the daughter I used to know. "Mama," she said, "I don't expect you to forgive me." Good, because forgiveness isn't free. It costs something. I told her the terms: therapy,
Mandatory, weekly, for as long as it took. Wage garnishment to repay every penny she'd personally withdrawn. No access to any of my finances ever. A legal document stating that she had no claim to my house, my accounts, or anything I owned. And Janelle, you need to understand something. Forgiveness doesn't mean trust is restored overnight. Trust isn't given, it's earned. And right now, you're starting at 0. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. But, I continued, if you do the work, real work, honest work, then maybe someday we can rebuild something. Not what we had before, but something different, something real.
3 months later, Darren and Denise were convicted. Darren received 5 years in federal prison for the forgery and fraud charges. Denise received 3 years, with an additional restitution order to pay back the money from their scheme. When the judge read the sentences, I felt something release inside my chest. Not joy, not satisfaction, just relief. The kind that comes when you know the world has been set right, even if just a little bit. My money was returned to me through asset seizures. Not all of it. Some was gone, spent on their travels and their lifestyle, but most of it came back. The house title was cleared. The reverse mortgage application was voided and destroyed. I was made whole. Legally, financially, I got my life back. Janelle kept her word. Every week, she went to therapy. Every month, a portion of her paycheck went to restitution. She moved back home, into her old room, and we started the slow, painful work of healing. It wasn't quick. It wasn't easy. Some days I'd wake up and remember what she'd done, and the hurt would wash over me all over again. But I also started seeing glimpses of the girl I raised, the one before Darren, the one before greed and fear had twisted her into someone unrecognizable. 6 months in, she asked me a question. "Mama, why didn't you let them put me in prison too?" I thought about that for a long moment. "Because," I said, "prison would have broken you, but responsibility, accountability, real consequences that you have to face every day, that might save you. That might teach you who you really are, without someone else telling you." She cried then, not angry tears, grateful ones. 2 years have passed since that Tuesday when I checked my bank balance and found it empty. Janelle still lives with me. She works at a dental office now, making decent money, and every 2 weeks she contributes to her restitution. She's paid back 60% of what she took. She attends therapy every Wednesday evening without fail. I've met her therapist. They tell me she's doing real work, confronting her insecurities, her need for validation, her inability to stand up to manipulation. On Sundays, we go to church together, Mount Olive Baptist, the same church where she sang in the children's choir all those years ago. She sits beside me in the pew, and sometimes when the pastor talks about redemption and second chances, I see her take a deep breath. Just last week, she turned to me after service and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I took her hand. "I never gave up on you. I just stopped letting you destroy me in the process." The house is still mine. My accounts are secure. I sleep well at night now. Darren will be released in 3 years, Denise in 2. I don't think about them much anymore. Their consequences are their own now. But Janelle, my daughter, my miracle baby, she's learning what it means to be accountable, to rebuild trust brick by painful brick, to understand that love without boundaries is just permission to be hurt. I learned something through all of this, something I wish I'd understood sooner. Love your children with all your heart. Protect them, guide them, believe in them. But protect yourself, too. Your dreams matter. Your legacy matters. Your peace matters. Because the people who love you most can break you the deepest. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their choices. That's not cruelty. That's wisdom. That's survival. And I survived.
Now, before you go, I have something to ask you. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know where my viewers are from. Let's build a community here. Because these stories, they're meant to be shared, to be felt, to remind us all of our own strength. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about your own family, your own boundaries, your own worth, then please, consider supporting this channel. Hit that super thanks button. It doesn't just help me, it tells YouTube that stories like this matter, that truth matters, that justice matters. And I promise you, I will keep bringing you more stories that shake your soul and remind you of your power. Finally, on your screen right now, you can see 2 incredible stories waiting for you. Stories of resilience, of people who fought back, who refused to be broken. There's so much more on this channel. So many more tales of betrayal, redemption, and justice. Lastly, download your ebook titled Suspense and Family Drama Short Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. You'll find more stories about families torn apart by secrets and people who found the courage to rebuild. Don't forget to subscribe. Turn on those notifications, because next week, I'm bringing you a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourself, and remember, your worth is not determined by what others take from you. It's determined by what you refuse to let them destroy.